This is a tough business to run for
president.
president.
I know you're a tough guy, Jeb.
And we need to have a leader that is
Real
principled.
tough.
I will take it to Hillary Clinton, and I will whoop her. You're never going to be president of the United States by insulting your way to the presidency.
Let's see. I'm at 42, and you're at 3. So
Doesn't matter.
far, I'm doing better.
Doesn't matter.
Dr. Carson. Thank you, Wolf. Please join me for a moment of silence and remembrance of
Jeb Bush's campaign.
I love my dad. I'd kill for him. I'd go to prison for him because I love him so much. I'll give him a warm kiss.
How do you do, fellow kids?
What?
I was in Washington, Iowa, about 3 months ago, talking about how bad Washington, D.C. is. It was to get the kind of the... Anyway.
For goodness sake.
A cup.
Okay. Well, welcome one and all to the first Metocast. Sorry about the delay. Had a bit of a technical issue with my home internet connection, or you might know it by another term, vodka, and a horrible, horrible hangover. But that happens. Now, I was planning originally to do kind of an hour conversation. I was going to talk about Sanders and, of course, Yeb, as well as the Republican debate, and then go into the pitch your candidate segment. But because it's been delayed and because we're starting an hour later than I had anticipated, and I don't want to keep Kyle waiting longer than he needs to, I'm actually going to bring him in here momentarily. And we're going to go right into it. We're going to go right into the Bernie Sanders thing. I've got his information up. We're ready to talk, so we should have no issue getting the Skype call up and running, and we can go right into it. And he can explain to me why Bernie Sanders is the most fantastic candidate to ever walk the face of the earth. So we'll do that in just a second. I see the audience is thrilled. Fuck you, Jim. Well, it feels good. It feels good to be doing a Metocast. So enjoy this crashing and burning. But let's get Kyle in here. I'm gonna just momentarily mute this, and I'm gonna bring him in. We're gonna go right into it. So just 1 second.
Hello?
Hey, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you just fine. Hopefully everybody watching is able to hear you. I've got the stream up and running, just so you know, so you don't jump into anything right away. But we should be good. I'm going to check the audio level here in just 1 second.
Okay,
so
cool.
Give me 1 sec here just to make sure it's coming through.
All right. Also, I apologize if my dog barks. He's kind of uncontrollable that way. I'll try to keep him from disturbing the stream, though.
All right, sorry about that. I just had to double check. Yeah, no, don't worry about your dog. That's perfectly fine. It's not a big issue. So again, I'm sorry. I was planning on starting this at noon. I was going to probably bring you in about 12:30, but again, issues came up, so I wasn't able to do that. So I just wanted to get you on right away, so I didn't waste any more of your time.
Nope.
Okay.
It's all right.
So I'm going to let you start this off. We had a conversation on Facebook where you were attempting to enlighten me as to why I'm wrong about Bernie Sanders. So I'm going to let you you have the opening statement here. You explain to me, I guess your position is. I'm guessing. I should say this first. I'm guessing you're a Bernie Sanders supporter just by the avatar.
Yeah. Obviously. I feel like Bernie Sanders needs to be... I think there needs to be a record set straight because people don't take him seriously. He's an underdog. He has no media coverage, basically no media coverage. And what is the number one issue right now going on in politics? Like, what's the underlying issue? Do you know what it is? I'm pretty sure it's money in politics. I'm sure you would know this.
Well,
'Cause
I guess I would say I'm not 100% certain about him not getting any media coverage. He
okay,
got quite
recently.
a fair he got quite a
Yeah,
fair
recently.
bit over the last
Recently.
day or two. Okay.
Recently, yeah, but I'm talking about since he started his campaign back in May.
Okay, and so you're asking me what I think the number one issue right now in politics is.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, what is your number one issue in politics?
With the political system itself, or the thing that I think is most important that politicians should be addressing?
Why not both? That's fine.
Oh, okay. Well, as far as the biggest issue in politics, I guess I would say it's outsider money. I dislike the idea of PACs, super PACs. If you look at Jeb
Me
Bush
too. Me too.
in particular, God, what is it? He's sitting at 103 million from outside sources, and
Yeah.
those and only 3% of them, at least in Jeb Bush's case, only 3% are small donors. Everybody else is a large entity, and so I don't like that.
His slogan should just be "I'm literally George Bush."
It should be. It really should be. You could ask people like, oh God, I think it was Fernandez down in Florida gave him $3 million for his TV ad campaign, and he was all enthusiastic, saying that everything's going great. Well, I don't know how great it's going if you've looked at Jeb Bush's numbers, but again, I'm getting off track here. But that would be my one issue with the political system itself. The other,
Super PACs, yeah.
as far as politics themselves, or the thing that I'm most interested to have politicians address, would be large government. That breaks off into different smaller things, but I don't like the size of the bureaucracy, and I don't like the
I'm assuming you're not a
overreach.
fan of the NSA or CIA or FBI.
Yeah, that would be one facet of it. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of them either, but I have connections and stuff like that too. I know I'm relatively safe from those types of tools used by the government and things like that.
Oh, I'm not. Oh God, they've probably got surveillance bugs inserted into my ass as we speak.
Yes.
With the hardware I use and the software I use, I have no illusions about any of the features of anonymity that I used to enjoy. Those days are dead. They're gone.
Well, the NSA has been using cross-device tracking lately, and so almost nobody is safe. If you've logged into an account on multiple devices or whatever, you're pretty much tracked for the rest of your life at this point.
Right. Well, I mean, Applebaum gave a really good speech. God, it was about 2 or 3 years ago at a convention where he was talking about just the different hardware that's been compromised. I mean, everybody talks about software. We saw what happened with Windows 10, but it goes a lot deeper.
Right. I would also like to bring up that Bernie Sanders is he's a huge opponent of the NSA and metadata collection. He wants to end almost. I don't know if he wants to end the NSA, but I know he wants to end the metadata collection of everybody's phone records and everybody's internet records and things like that.
Okay, and we'll get into that definitely. I mean, we'll kind of go point by point. But so you think Bernie Sanders is misunderstood? That's your biggest gripe.
I think that is the biggest gripe.
Oh, okay.
Quite exactly.
Now, when we talked on Facebook, to be fair here, now you said I'm a jackoff who's retarded and doesn't understand this. So I want you to.
I don't know if I said retarded, but I did say jack off. That is true.
Okay, I want you to go through this and explain to me. I mean, you kind of gave me this. You feel like he's not being treated fairly, at least, or he's getting kind of a bum rap because he's getting less media attention, or people don't really understand his positions well. So we'll go kind of piece by piece. Is that fair? And kind of talk about his positions. I think one of the things I said to you was I dislike him. Well, I dislike him for a few reasons. But one of the things I think I have the biggest gripe with is the idea that he's kind of the let me give you things for free. Oh, Kyle, you there?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I thought you cut out. He's one of the, I described him as a political piñata who's full of free shit rather than candy, and he's trying to get people to whack them with his votes. That's kind of the appeal. Like, I will give you this. I will give you everything. We're going to do free college. We're going to do free healthcare. I'm going to raise the minimum wage. So, in addressing that kind of free stuff, let's talk about college.
Okay.
Now, his proposal was he wants to do college for all. Tuition-free college. I don't know if he addressed actually
in public universities. Remind you.
No,
Public universities.
Fair enough. Yep, public universities. So you're not going to be able to get free college to go to Harvard or
Like
Yale.
Yale,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I don't know why you would want to go to Yale at this point.
Well, that's you may have a point, but this was going to be his approach. I don't know if he addressed actual books, if that was included or folded into his idea of taking care of tuition for college students.
His position is I don't think he wants to pay for books and everything. I think he just wants to pay for class tuition. I think it needs to be expanded more, like his conversations about free college and free tuition and things like that. I think he needs to be a little bit more nuanced and talk about the actual details rather than just saying, "Oh, we're going to give everybody free college" or whatever, things like that. I think that gives a lot of the opposition a lot of ammo to just attack him with, saying that exactly how you're pointing it out, free stuff.
Right. Well, this is my understanding of it. His proposal was $70 billion. Now, the average cost of tuition per college student, sorry, it comes out to about $9,000 per person. So
For like in what, like one semester or like one?
I don't know. I'm just going on the basic information I was able to find through his website. He had a couple of different links up that went to different bills, but I do know his proposal for college for all was $70 billion. That's correct, isn't it?
I can, yes.
No.
I believe so. I'd have to look it up. I could probably look it up right here. It's probably on his site. But anyways, I wanted to say the average college tuition for like just a 2-year program, you're gonna look into maybe around like $40,000.
Yeah. The 9,000 would be. I got. Okay, you're right. I think it comes out to 36,000 at the end of it. But
Yeah.
okay. So here's my thing. When I'm looking at his numbers, he says $70 billion. But only 47 billion of that is financed through the federal government. 33 billion is offloaded onto the state.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're talking about he's going to do this. What was it? 0.5% tax on capital dividends, or he was doing something with the stock market, the Robin Hood tax. This was how he's proposing to pay for.
Well, not only the Robin Hood tax, but also he's planning to tax anybody, basically all the billionaires and people like the Koch brothers and stuff like that. He plans on doing a marginal tax rate of about, I think, 90%. And so,
which is World War II levels. So you're talking about like 1944 taxes.
Which, I mean, did it not bring us into a better economic situation?
I don't think you can necessarily put our success post World War II on a tax rate. Rather than a technological boom and the fact that we had just won a war.
Do you not think that we're going to go through another technological boom? Do you not think AI is going to be like the next big thing in technology?
Is that part of Bernie Sanders' platform? Don't worry, everything's going to be okay. AI's coming?
No, obviously not. I don't think he's qualified to really talk about anything like that. I don't know if he's studied it enough or anything like that, but I think that's one of the least talked about things that's going to be huge in the coming generations. I'd say that like within the next decade or two.
Well, putting aside Skynet for just a second, so he's.
I'm not talking about just Skynet. I'm talking about like personal AI systems.
That's fine too. I was joking, but so he's doing 47 billion, and that'll go through the federal government. Fine. Let's say the Robin Hood tax works. Let's say that the Koch brothers and Bill Gates, well, Clinton too. He's got 200 million. But let's say
Bill Gates is a proponent for taxing the 1% and taxing billionaires.
Fantastic. So let's say all that works out. So that's $47 billion through the federal government. So now we've got 33 billion being offloaded onto the states. Now you've got roughly in the country about a third of us are taxpayers. Mm-hmm. If you go by federal income tax, so they're going to be paying state taxes too. So this would, if you kind of break it down, it's going to, and this is just rough math, it's going to break down to about $250 to $300 per person. So now he's talking about we're going to pay through the, or we're going to pay for this. We're going to get the rich people to pay for it. We're going to get corporations to pay for it. We're going to get Wall Street to pay for it.
They're going to be paying the overwhelming majority. That is correct.
Overwhelming majority, but you've got 120 million people that are now paying $250 to $300 for somebody else's college education. I mean, the state is going to have to budget that money in. If you distribute it evenly across, if you figure every state's going to do this, so I mean, what is the outcome?
You have to understand that the college tuition rates and all the fees and everything, they're artificially inflated to begin with.
Artificially inflated. I mean, how is he factoring that in? I read through his briefing. He doesn't address that. He just says we're going to do $70 billion.
He doesn't address it, but it's a factor.
Okay, can you qualify that for me? How is it a factor?
So, what has been, I'm going to have to look up the exact numbers. What was the average cost of tuition, say, about like 20, 30 years ago?
20, 30 years ago? I wouldn't have that on me, I'm sorry. You take your time. I mean, you can look it up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't prepare for this exact question, but...
No, it's fine. It's fine. We've got time to debate, so, take your time, look it up.
If you want to talk about something else while I do this, that's totally fine. I can multitask.
Yeah. I mean, if you're fine doing that, we can move on to something else. Oh, geez. Okay, well, let's talk about. You said Bernie Sanders is anti. God, how would I say this? He's again. He's like I am. He doesn't like the idea of all the surveillance in the country, right?
I'm absolutely with that too.
Okay, so let's talk about his stance in regards to Homeland Security, the NSA, the Patriot Act. Let's, the omnibus bill that just went through with CISA, folded into it.
Oh,
Thanks.
that's terrible. It's I think it needed to be rewritten, and CISA needed to be completely removed. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, it's already been pushed through. So,
Oh yeah, I know.
what is his stance on that? What exactly has he said?
I haven't caught up because it was just recently done on the 18th or 17th, right? I haven't caught up on him. I apologize.
Oh no, and I don't mean specifically with CISA, but I just mean in general. What is his stance on the surveillance state? What has he said that he's going to do? He's coming into office day one. Great. What are you going to do, Bernie, in regards to the NSA, Homeland Security, PRISM program, all these
the
different
prison
acts?
program. He wants to remove for-profit prisons. He wants to get that system completely taken care of and make it a state program.
No. PRISM, PRISM. The PRISM program is the NSA
okay,
program.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. We'll get to the prison thing too. But so he's coming into office day one. Great. What is he going to do? How is he going to address the NSA, PRISM, all that stuff?
I believe he hasn't actually addressed it in a direct way, but he's talked about it during his rallies and things like that. That he wants to end the metadata collection of the NSA and things like that. But how he's going to go about it, I'm not sure, because he can't rule with an iron fist, obviously, just like any other presidential candidate. Like nobody's going to get everything that they want when they propose these ideas, like any other president that's ever proposed. Like Obama, he's proposed before he became president. He proposed so many different things, but he wasn't able to do it because the Republicans just kept blocking him throughout his presidential candidacy, or not candidacy, but his campaign, or not campaign. I don't know. During his run as president, I suppose.
Okay. And I understand the political process. Obviously, there are going to be issues trying to get the House and the Senate to agree with anything he wants to do. But
Yeah.
I just want to know, what's his platform? You can say, I mean, it's very vague. He wants to get rid of metadata collection. What does that mean to me? What programs is he cutting? Who is he pulling budgets from? How is he addressing what's already happened over the past 5 years? What programs is he shutting down?
I don't think the thing is I don't think this has reached his desk necessarily, and to the point where he actually lays out his plan for the public to acknowledge. I think we need to bring this to his attention, essentially, as the citizens of this country. I just don't think he's answered it. I haven't seen it since he started running for president.
So he has no plank in his platform in specific regard to this.
Yeah. I don't think he's laid out a plan yet. He's stated that he wants to end the metadata collection, but there's no clear-cut plan that he has for it yet.
But that feels up in the air, you know what I mean? Like, he
Sure,
wants
but
to end the metadata collection. What the hell does that mean?
But you could say that about almost any other candidate when they propose things as well.
Yeah, but we're not talking about any other candidate. We're talking. I mean, this is pitch Bernie Sanders. So okay. So he doesn't really have a specific plan in regards to this. Fair enough. He maybe hasn't addressed it. Maybe hasn't touched on it. He's just kind of given a general statement.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Okay. As far as the college tuition, have you pulled that up?
No, I have not. I apologize. Let's see. Whenever I look it up, I always get a multi-graph of saying like hours of minimum wage worked versus how much it costs for tuition. So I'm trying to get just the tuition.
Fair enough. You brought up minimum wage. Let's address that.
Yeah, that's a big issue.
Oh, okay. So tell me your position, or your candidate's position on the minimum wage.
Bernie Sanders wants to raise the minimum wage to $15. I don't know. I think it depends entirely on the city you live in and the economic situation of that city, like the levels of poverty and the levels of and just the amount of people that live there. I feel like in cities where there's lots of people and there's lots of economic activity, I feel like a higher minimum wage benefits. But in smaller cities, in like I don't know, bumfuck Nebraska or something, where there's like a few hundred people, having a $15 minimum wage would just ruin the economy, because there's not enough money to go around, if you understand what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. So is that is that your take on it, or is that his position on it? From what I understood, he wanted it.
That's my personal belief.
Okay.
I don't believe that a national wide $15 minimum wage would necessarily help. I feel like maybe like 12 or 13 would be more feasible and realistic. But if the people want that, and he can make it happen, I mean, what can we do about it?
Oh, okay. What's his position though? Is it, he wants an across the board nationwide $15
15
an
to,
hour?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Now I remember a news story that had come out about it was regarding people on his staff as interns. Was this true? Could you tell me some information on this about him only paying $12 per hour for the people working for him?
I believe they offered to work for him, and he offered to pay them that much, and I believe it's part of the negotiation. And I don't know if it's necessarily reflective of his character or anything. I just know that he wanted to pay him that much. I don't know anything myself. I wouldn't be able to get into the details about it.
Oh, okay. Well, hypothetically, if I were in a situation where or I was telling other people to do something and then I wasn't myself doing it, what would you call me?
A hypocrite, obviously.
Okay. Now, with Sanders, talking about this $15 minimum wage, we don't really have a lot of data. I tried to pull up some numbers and stuff, especially in regards to Seattle, because they've tested that out, at least in that city. But because it's so, God, how do I put this? Because it's so recent, it's really hard to get any hard data. You know what I mean? You don't want any kind of anomalies.
Oh yeah,
or,
because it's still a study in action, I suppose. Like they're still studying it. Like there's still things to be done to recognize the value of raising the minimum wage.
Right. Well, what I'm talking about is an analysis of business closures. I mean, I believe it was Forbes had come out with an article, got in May, maybe August. They kind of jumped the gun. A few people had jumped the gun and said we have a lot of restaurant closures. This must be related to minimum wage, even though Seattle was kind of phasing it in.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know that they have seen stagnation, as in the
Oh,
amount
I'm
of.
sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry to butt in, but I know Bernie Sanders. He didn't plan to just implement $15 right away off the bat. He wanted to do it in increments. That's what he wanted to do.
So the Seattle model, the kind of gradual.
Yeah, essentially.
Okay, fair enough. I do know that when you look at job growth and job openings compared to the state as a whole, Seattle lags behind. That is one of the figures that has come up. I think it was like 1.3 compared to like 3.0 for the state. Again, I'm going off memory here. I could be off on this. But it does seem to have an impact for the amount of jobs that are available because people seem a little reticent. They seem a little hesitant to start hiring more people when they know they're paying more money. They're trying to get, I guess, more out of their workers.
Right.
Would you see this as an issue with more people coming out of college? Let's say everything works out with Bernie's tuition-free college. Everything that's fine, but people still need to pay for rent. Obviously, they need food. They're going to need to buy their books. All of this.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you see that as being a situation? You've got all these college kids. You've got all these young people. They're going to go into, granted, the job would pay $15 an hour, but it's going to be a less skilled job because they don't have the degree yet. So, if there are less jobs available, do you think that is going to put a burden on people who are still trying to get through the hardship of going through college or starting off a life? They've moved out of mom and dad's house. They need to pay the rent. They need to buy food. They need to be an adult, essentially. But now there are less jobs available because businesses don't want to hire because they're paying more.
So it depends on what jobs you're looking for, obviously. But there's a lot of job opportunities, but it depends on what you're skilled in, obviously. So when people go to college and they study communications and other stupid bullshit where there's no real application, like psychology or something, because so many people go for psychology and communications degrees. As soon as they get out of college with those types of degrees, yeah, they went through college and they went through the process of taking those classes and stuff. But when they come out, they don't have any of the qualifications to get an actual job that's worth something.
Right. No, I'm talking about just any kind of job you could normally associate with. Let's use college students, for example. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Any job you would associate them potentially taking to support themselves while doing college. So now they don't have to worry about paying tuition, but they still have to worry about rent, food, all these other issues. Car insurance, gas, whatever. The day-to-day stuff. So let's McDonald's.
Yeah, okay. I was about to say, so that's what you're getting at, like minimum wage workers and stuff like that. Okay.
Well, I mean that is the big issue, though. I mean we're talking about a $15 an hour minimum wage. So let's we use McDonald's as an example. So if you have a McDonald's or you have another fast food joint or a restaurant that now is showing less job openings because they're hiring less people, what is that going to do for the college student that now is forced into a situation where instead of worrying before, which was how am I going to pay for my tuition, it's how the hell am I going to get a job to pay for my rent?
I feel like a lot of it has to do with the business owners too. Because if you want to take a look at like one of the mega corporations, Nintendo, Satoru Iwata, when they released the Wii U, it had such a terrible, like, it was terrible. They had so many lost funds, and like they had a net loss over the, what was it? I think over the entire year, the year it was released. Satoru Iwata took a pay cut just so his workers could stay there.
Oh, okay.
What I mean by that is that it's not necessarily the increase of the minimum wage that would affect their ability to get a job. It's the CEOs that have the enormous rates compared to how much the minimum wage workers make.
Well, you know,
It has a lot to do with that, because it's currently over the median CEO ratio to, or pay rate ratio to a minimum wage worker is something like well over 300 times the amount of a minimum wage worker, and whereas I want to say like 20 years ago it was only like 20 something.
True, but I mean, you could say the value is in the position and the function that they perform, or that their work is valued more than the minimum wage worker. If I were to paint something,
But who's the one that determines the value? The CEO.
well, yeah, the person running the company at the head of the company is going to determine what they pay people. Yeah, obviously.
Obviously, yes.
But back to my point is, if I were to paint something and try to sell it, I'd get $5. If I put a Van Gogh up for sale, it's going to be a lot more, because people value the abilities of somebody else over mine. I'd be the minimum wage worker in that situation, whereas Van Gogh would be the CEO performing a higher level task than I'm doing. So shouldn't you get paid more for doing a better job, a more important job?
Well, yeah, of course, but there's a problem here, because the cost of living has skyrocketed, whereas the minimum wage has remained stagnant for the past, I want to say like 15 years.
Okay.
And whereas in history, if you notice from the Great Depression onwards, there was a steady decline going on with the cost of living and the minimum wage up until about, I'd say, like the 80s and 90s, where it started to become stagnant. And what's the current federal minimum wage? I want to say like 7.25.
I believe you're right. I believe it's 7.25, 7.50, somewhere in there. But your general ballpark is right.
Yeah. It stopped increasing with the cost of living. As soon as the corporate Republicans, like when Ronald Reagan started taking office and we began the trickle-down economic system, and when Clinton came in and he removed Glass-Steagall, the Private Banking Act, and things like that.
Yeah, I know Glass-Steagall. Go ahead.
That completely undermines the middle class, and it removes their ability to essentially have the American dream of working, going to school, and doing things to improve themselves and to get that better job.
Okay, so we've got a couple of things to talk about here, and we'll try to get to all of them.
Yeah. I apologize if it's all over the place, but I'm willing to get down and talk about it.
And that's fine. But kind of going, I'm trying to think how we can break this down. Earlier, when we were talking about, let's say, college tuition, I'd mentioned the Robin Hood tax, but you'd also mentioned that the 90% tax rate on the richest people. So you've got CEOs, and you've got business owners, you've got these billionaires and millionaires that are going to be footing a 90%. What kind of tax was it? Income tax? Is that what he said?
I believe it would be an income tax. I don't believe he would just go to their houses and take their money.
Okay, so well, obviously, so 90% income tax. So,
but he also believes in taxing every single person that has tax havens outside of the United States, which they're essentially laundering money, and that's another huge problem with the American political system and the elites.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll try to get to that too. But so here I am. I'm a billionaire, and I own a big corporation. I'm going to be the CEO. Fuck it.
Was it Jimco?
Yeah, It's Jimco. So here I am. I'm this rich motherfucker. I run a very successful business. People love whatever my product is. Fuck it. I sell widgets. Widgets are the most popular product in America today, and I am rolling in the fucking money. So here comes Bernie Sanders into office, and he says college tuition for everybody. And he says, we're going to do a 90% income tax on you, Jim, the head of Jimco, because we're going to pay for everybody's college. So I grumble and I say, fuck. That's a lot of goddamn money. But you know what? I'm patriotic, goddammit. And people love my widgets, and I want those kids to get their college education. So I figure, okay, fuck it. I'm going to do it. I'm gonna grip my teeth, and I'm going to deal with the 90% income tax. But now here comes Bernie Sanders, and he says everybody's going to get $15 an hour. So I'm getting double hit here. I'm not just getting a 90% income tax. I'm also having to take a pay cut to cover my employees. So I guess what my question would be is, what's my motivation to stay in the United States? Why am I not going to just go to Canada or Mexico or Europe or South America? I mean, I'm paying 90% in income tax, and then I'm taking pay cuts on top of that to run a business because I've got to pay some kid to mop the floor $15 an hour, where his job really only earns him, or should earn him, fucking $7 an hour.
Well, first of all, you'd have to be, in order to do that, you would have to be a citizen, and they would have to accept you. And
They will accept my money. They will accept my billions of dollars. Trust me, they will accept my money. But go on.
I don't know. I feel like the international community isn't very fond of billionaires and allowing them to do whatever they want. The people, at least. The establishment, they obviously they let rich people do whatever they want. Just look at Donald Trump.
Right. Well, didn't you say, though, that they're using offshore tax havens? So, I mean, they love the money.
Absolutely.
So you're telling me you don't think a country would be like, okay, here's somebody coming in with $1 billion industry who's going to create thousands and thousands of jobs and is going to improve whatever city he comes into. You think they're going to be like, we don't want you?
I think if Bernie Sanders is given the opportunity of a large platform as the presidency, I believe this issue will be brought to attention by not just the American people, but the entire international community, I would say the globe, because the president is one of the most influential people, the president of the United States, I should say, is one of the most influential people of the world. And I think if he brought to the attention that billionaires and the establishment are working together to create this system that benefits them, and they're allowed to create these tax havens and tax loopholes and tax safe havens and things where they can just store billions of dollars without being taxed. I believe if he brings this to the attention of the people are going to start to say something. You're going to say, hey, that's fucked up. You need to use those tax dollars that you're fucking hiding and use them here at home in the United States to build our infrastructure, to build our communities, to become more educated, and to get more technologies and get people going in the system.
Oh, okay. So let's say you're right. Or let's say in the scenario, my Jimco scenario, you're right. I can't get into another country for whatever reason. The president of the United States uses his influence. So I'm paying a 90% income tax. I've now taken a huge hit in profits because I have to pay my employees $15 an hour for whatever their position is. And now they want to close my tax havens. So any money that I could invest overseas through whatever means possible, whether it was whether it was legitimate or not, whatever means possible, by legitimate or not, to try to get a return, a profit, are now cut off from me because the president has interceded. From the point of somebody who's in the 1%, I mean, I know, and again, from my perspective, I agree there are issues in this country. I think there are a lot of issues in this country, especially with banking and just
The Federal Reserve is a slavery system, essentially.
just different things. But from my percent as a person who's in the 1%, let's say I'm not an asshole and I didn't just inherit my money. I worked fucking hard for it. I built Jimco with my bare hands. How much am I supposed to give? I'm getting hit for 90% on income taxes. I've got to pay everybody's salary and everybody's college, and I can't invest overseas now. How much do I have to give? How much wealth redistribution do I have to give until I'm accepted as being equal to the guy who doesn't have to do that?
Let me say something. Most billionaires in this country are not. Very few of them are actually self-made billionaires.
But there are some. I mean, we shouldn't.
Yeah.
You can't take the approach that most of them are this way, so all of them should be treated this way. That's the lowest common denominator. I'm saying me, Jimco. I worked hard for it. So what do I do? How is that fair to me?
You voice your opinion, just like everybody else.
I voice my opinion like everybody else. I'm asking you, do you think that's fair for me? I worked hard for my money, but now I'm paying a 90% income tax. You're not. I mean, you're going to be in the bracket everybody else is, 24%.
I think what's more unfair is the people that work more than 40 hours a week on minimum wage, and they're still struggling to being able to pay for all their food and all of their expenses and things like that. I think that's more unfair than a billionaire whining about being taxed a little bit more.
A little bit more. You're paying 25%. I'm paying 90%. That's 65% more. That's more than just a percentage fraction.
I shouldn't have said a little more, but yeah, being taxed more. It's not like your effective income is going to be okay. I'm a firm believer in capitalism, but not complete capitalism. I'm not a firm believer in socialism, but portions of socialism. I believe in this in between state that we currently have, like a social welfare state. But I don't believe that being able to accumulate as many funds as the Koch brothers and all the other corrupt billionaires have. I don't believe it. I don't believe it's not a feasible solution. Like, being able to accumulate that much money is it's just not right.
So do you think there should be a government instituted cap on the amount of profit somebody can make?
No, but I believe how you go about making your money should be.
I sold widgets, man. That's how I became rich at Jimco. So, I mean, we're talking about wealth redistribution. I mean, let's be honest. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about taking from somebody who has a lot.
It's not necessarily just straight up just giving people money and doing things. They have to go through the programs.
No.
To benefit.
It is wealth redistribution. I'm paying people $15 an hour where they should be getting $7. So I'm taking a cut to pay for that. That is wealth redistribution. You're taking 90% of my income and paying for your college, and you're taking my investments overseas and forcing them back in the United States to be redistributed to the people.
I believe that's the fair American way. Hard work and having that opportunity. I believe that's fair.
You believe the fair American way is to take what somebody fairly earned and give it to somebody else.
That's I wouldn't say that most billionaires haven't fairly earned their income.
Oh, okay. Tell me how they've unfairly earned it.
You want me to start with the Koch brothers?
Yep. Use your worst example. How have the Koch brothers unfairly earned their money?
They pollute. They pollute like fucking hell. They essentially insert carcinogenic waste into local communities. It's terrible. They literally kill people for profit.
The Koch brothers have murdered people.
Not directly.
You said they literally killed people for money.
It's in an indirect way.
So they've indirectly murdered people.
Not over time with cancer. Yeah.
Okay, and they've done this.
Pollution.
And how have they done this? You said pollution. So how have they murdered people with pollution?
Let me pull up the article here.
And that's fine. Take your time. We like I said, we've got another half an hour here if you've got the time. So there's no hurry.
And I found a graph here.
Okay.
For the tuition. I'll send you a link so if you want to put it up on the stream or whatever.
Yeah, sure. I'll try to get that up. I'm still a little new with OBS, so I'll try to get it to work properly. But it's nice to have nonetheless.
Yes. I found a Rolling Stone article about. This should be good. I haven't read this particular one, but it probably goes over what they have done. Let me just try to read through it real fast.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like I said, take your time. Go ahead. I'm going to take a quick look at the it's the Trends College one. Yeah, right?
That one exactly. I wanted to talk about that too. If you want to go back to that real fast.
Yeah. Just give me 1 sec to look over it, and then we'll try to cover it. Okay.
Okay. So, but basically, in the Rolling Stone article that I just sent you, they talk about how the Koch brothers, the Koch industries, they control at least 4 oil refineries, 6 ethanol plants, a natural gas-fired power plant, and 4,000 miles of pipeline.
Okay.
Let me get to the exact details of how much pollutants they put out into the atmosphere. This is a relatively larger article, so it's going to be...
And that's fine. With the Koch brothers now, I'm going to guess they have a lot of investments in multiple companies. They run a lot of different things.
Well, they influence the political system directly. Have you seen the Heritage Foundation? Have you seen all of the other institutes that they basically fund with all their money? Just to essentially educate, and I say that very loosely, their Republican candidates to implement regulations and things that only benefit them and screw over the taxpayers and the middle class.
Well, shouldn't we be happy though? I mean, I'm sure those institutes in those different locations have janitors who are now going to be making $15 an hour.
Those institutions shouldn't exist.
Yeah, but look at all those jobs they've created, and all those people are going to be making $15 an hour.
I disagree with them entirely. I don't even think they should be. I don't think they should exist. It's corruption. It's exactly what it is. Either that, or they should have no say. I shouldn't say they shouldn't have no say. They shouldn't be directly influencing the political system with their money.
So you think that them having political think tanks is wrong as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
But the think tanks themselves are just going over issues and then they release reports.
Yeah, and they go on Fox News and CNN and just they spout bullcrap. As you probably know that the media is completely bullshit. Almost nothing on Fox News is actually factual. Half the time, the maps and the graphs that they use are completely wrong.
I don't disagree. I think mainstream media has major issues, but from what I'm gathering, and again, I'm going to give you time to look over the pollution information. We'll come back to that. But it seems like, and again, I mean, you say that you're kind of for this moderate or more modern approach to a socialist state. But we've already, I mean, kind of look at what we're talking about here. 90% income tax, $50 an hour, cutting into profits. You can invest overseas. And now you're telling me that, you don't just want that, but you think that these people are corrupt and they shouldn't be able to spend money on think tanks. They shouldn't be able to run energy-related businesses because
No. I don't think that they shouldn't be being able to run their business and things like that. But I don't believe that they should be allowed to run their businesses and pay literally everybody in these political think tanks to influence our political system. I believe.
No, that's what I'm saying, though. You're saying you don't think they should have the right to spend their money the way they want, whether that be on a political think tank or 40 pounds of Oreos.
Money does not equal free speech. I'll get that across right now. Money does not equal free speech.
But what I'm saying is, how is what they're doing wrong, or why are you saying that they should? You're telling me, or you're telling them
because there's no limit to what they can how much they can pay into the system. The Citizens United essentially said, yeah, corporations are people, and there's no limit to how much you can spend into this political system. So go ahead, spend. What are they spending? Just the Koch brothers. How much are they spending on this?
I agree with you.
Political run, like it's like $1 billion or something like that, like an astronomical amount that the public probably isn't going to raise.
Right, Kyle, hold on. I agree with you about Citizens United. I think that's a terrible thing.
And Bernie Sanders wants to overturn it.
Great. I don't think corporations are people. I don't think corporations should have the right of people. But what I'm saying is, if I've earned the money, I should be able to spend it how I want to spend it. Whether that's paying people to investigate political ideas and then releasing reports. How would you solve that? Are you going to have the government intervene and tell them you can't spend the money? Or are you going to have them come in and say you can't spend the money and then have them talk to people about it?
I think there should be a cap to how much they can spend to directly influence senators and representatives.
But we're not
through super PACs and through.
We're talking about think tanks that are going on to Fox News. So how would you stop that? What mechanism do you think should be in place to stop that from happening?
Educate the people. That's all. That's one of the best ways, because they can say whatever they want and things like that, but it's up to the people to believe what they have to say or not. So I think there needs to be more money spent into actual education and education into the political system.
Okay, I have to admit I'm feeling a bit lost here. You just said that money doesn't equal free speech, because we were talking in relation to these think tanks that the Koch brothers run. New American Institute, or whatever you would name it, the Heritage Fund, or Heritage Group.
Heritage Foundation.
Heritage Foundation, great. There's so many goddamn think tanks in this country. It's hard to keep track.
Exactly.
But you had said free speech, or money doesn't equal free speech, as we're talking about this issue, because you thought that they're unfairly influencing stuff, or you thought it was unfair that they can put all this money into these think tanks to put out this information and to influence people. But now you're saying that isn't an issue.
No, it is an issue, but there's not much we can do about it at the moment.
I'm saying in your idealized world where everything works out, like let's say that the hindrances and the barriers to stopping something from being done are removed. Let's say Bernie comes in and he's totally with you on this. What do you think should be put in place to stop that? How should the government intercede to stop what you see as a problem?
That's something I haven't necessarily, I haven't thought about how I would go about keeping them from influencing the political system. I haven't necessarily thought about a real nuanced way of going about doing that. I would have to do a little bit more research in what would be an effective method while still allowing the freedoms of expressing an opinion, because you need to have that freedom of expression. You can't just silence somebody because you disagree with them.
Okay, but you do think that you would find some mechanism or some means.
But I absolutely disagree with everything that they are and what they do.
Okay, well let's touch back on the pollution thing. Have you had a chance to kind of look over that?
I sent you a link of Bernie Sanders literally talking about the Koch brothers and everything that they've done. I don't know. I don't have a transcript or anything. If I did, I would show you. But that video goes over exactly what they're doing with the environment at 38 minutes and 20 seconds. If you would like to actually put it up on the stream, it's only about like 2 minutes long, I believe.
Okay, you said at the 38-minute and 20-second mark?
Yeah, it's in the description of the video I sent you here.
All right, give me 1 second. I'll try to pull it up, and I'll bring it to that time code here. All right, let's see. 38 minutes, 20 seconds. It might take me 1 second here. I'll let the audio play for 2 minutes, and then we'll go from there, all right?
Yeah. And it says at 40 minutes and 52 seconds, it talks about how the Koch brothers cause cancer by dumping their toxic waste.
Big oil personified, and they're carbon barons. They make most of their money.
Am I going to be able to hear it through you or your stream or anything like that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was actually playing it right now. Yeah, you could probably hear it through the stream. It just started. Okay. It was Koch brothers and tar sands talking about their energy companies.
Okay.
This proposed Keystone pipeline is a 1,700 miles.
I remember when this video came out, and I kept it bookmarked.
Bomb on the continent.
It is going to take the dirtiest energy, the so-called tar sands, and bring them down the United States.
Koch brothers.
Do you know the history of the Koch brothers?
Unbelievable.
Well, we'll talk about it in a second. I just want this to play so the people watching can hear it, and then we'll go over it.
Don't worry about it.
Carbon and hence money. There are trillions of dollars worth of oil up there.
Any spill means that the dirtiest, nastiest fuel on Earth will be poured all over our country.
Over 10,000 protesters surrounded the White House Sunday, calling on President Obama to reject the proposed Keystone XL tar sands oil pipeline.
And we say tar sands, you say shut down tar sands! Shut down! Tar sands! Shut down! Yeah.
We're never going to have enough money to compete with the Koch brothers. We're going to have to find other currencies to use, and sometimes it's our bodies. Over 2 weeks in Washington, 1,253 people got arrested. That was the largest civil disobedience action in about 30 years in this country. I myself was arrested on the first day of this protest and spent the next 3 days in Central Cell Block in D.C.
We played the game as hard as we could, making it clear to President Obama that there were people all over the country really deeply concerned about this. And in the end, that was enough to outweigh the financial power of the Koch brothers and the rest of the oil industry.
President Obama making an unexpected decision on the Keystone oil pipeline.
The president announcing they were going to hold off on a final decision for at least a year.
The Obama administration said today it is putting off a decision on whether to approve the Keystone pipeline.
The Koch brothers will scrape the bottom of the barrel with the tar sands. That is the dirtiest fuel on the planet. There's no limit to the number of communities and families they will hurt to make their money off dirty energy.
Okay. And if you're watching the stream, there's obviously going to be a bit of delay, but I played from the 38:20 till 40:49.
Unfortunately, that wasn't the exact time allotted that I wanted to talk about. It was actually more towards the latter end of the video, where towards like 40:52, where they talk about the toxic waste and things like that. But if you want to skip that and talk about,
well, you know what? No,
that's fine.
That's fine. I can play it too. What's the time code?
It says 40:52 in the description.
Okay, I'm just gonna let it keep playing. Again, I'm just gonna stay silent so they can hear it too, and then we'll come back to it.
Okay.
Something is wrong on this street, Penn Road, where I live. Something is wrong here. in this community.
It's killing people, just like it killed my daughter.
I live on Penn Road. People call me Mr. Bowie because I'm a minister. I pastored church for 22 years in this area. I'm a reserve deputy sheriff, and I'm a senior citizen. This house is Mr. Warfield Gibbs. His wife, Bobby Sue Gibbs, passed away with multi-cancers a few years ago.
I have to do this 3 to 4 times a day.
This house here belongs to Mr. George Parker and it's Miss Ollie Parker. Both of them was taken out by cancer.
My husband died of lung cancer, and I am having breathing problems.
Mr. Tom Perkins and his wife, they live here. Mr. Tom Perkins is deceased now. He had multi-cancers. We have 15 homes in this area, and maybe 11 people has died or more with cancer, and that's unreal.
What's going on here is a crime.
It's just a waste. My daughter Letitia died at 43. She grew up in the neighborhood. She had a husband, a devoted husband. She had children that she really and truly loved. And
Kyle, I'm going to jump in here. Do you know exactly what time code they start talking about how this is? They're talking about a cancer cluster, but do you know exactly what time code they bring up?
Not off the top of my head. I haven't watched this video in a few months. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, let's. I don't want to let it play too long because we got.
Obviously, yeah.
Okay, let me address a couple things. The first thing that kind of popped up was they talked about, in a little bit, this talked about what you were touching on. The Koch brothers using their money to influence the building of the Keystone Pipeline, right? Mm-hmm. But they also said that activists were able to sway Obama's opinion. Doesn't that show that money doesn't have as much of an influence as you believe? I mean, if people who weren't billionaires were able to stop them, then obviously them spending money didn't have an effect.
But the people that don't have the money in the political system, they're not the ones influencing what legislation is going through.
They just did though in this video itself.
They stopped the legislation going through that was paid for by the billionaires and the think tanks, but they aren't directly influencing what's going through the political system. They just prevented a terrible thing from happening.
It was reactive activism, correct? But if they were able to do that, couldn't they just do the same thing and get legislation they wanted passed?
It's very hard to do because the politicians, they don't want to do what the people want. They want to do what.
But in this case, the politicians did do what they wanted. The president stopped the pipeline.
In that case. But you know what? Also, the president has called for. He signed the TPP. He wanted to get other things that people are extremely vocal about that we don't want.
Oh, okay. Now, kind of going on to the cancer cluster, they're talking about, God, I think they said 11 out of 15 people on the street, dirty energy. I'm going to guess that it's going to come back to a business the Koch brothers run is somewhere in the vicinity. I mean, would you agree with that? You've watched this before, I haven't.
Yeah. That's exactly the situation. They have a oil facility or a pipeline or something nearby, and they just openly pollute. They just openly dump toxic waste into nearby homes and stuff like that. And it's just.
So these people must all be multimillionaires from the lawsuits they filed, right?
I don't believe they. I don't know. I'd have to watch the rest of the video. I haven't watched it in a while.
But
I don't know if they've actually gone through the efforts of suing them and things like that yet. But Bernie Sanders is the one that's coming out against and for them.
Well, here's my point with this. If this cancer cluster is directly related to the Koch business, if it's directly related to the pollution that they're putting in the airs, the pollutants they're putting in the airs, these people should be able to go to court and use the judicial system to met out justice and to prove that there's something going on. So unless this video ends with them winning a multi-million-dollar lawsuit, unless there's a follow-up to this saying how these people have been proven in court to show that the Koch brothers' pollution is in fact the cause of this particular cancer cluster, how is that fair to say that the Koch brothers are responsible?
Because they have I wouldn't say millions of lawyers, but they have a shit ton of lawyers and they have a shit ton of money to keep the court systems in their favor.
So you don't think the judicial system works on truth? You think it works on money?
That's a part of it. A lot of it, yeah.
What would your solution to that be then?
Get money out of politics. Get politicians who will recognize that this is a problem and they implement new bills and things like that would prevent big money from influencing even the judicial system.
No, I meant as far as the judicial system. I mean, politicians aren't going to be able to stop me from hiring a lawyer. So
Obviously.
what would your solution to that be? For me tying up the courts with 1,000 lawyers?
Uh, what do you mean? You can hire as many lawyers as you want. You can. There's no way to stop somebody from doing that. But the problem is that people, because they have all these lawyers, they're able to keep the legal process going on, and so it never stops. And then eventually, the people trying to sue them, they don't have any more funds. They don't have the money to keep that legal battle going, and they essentially have to quit.
So you don't see that as a problem then?
No, it is a problem.
That's why I'm asking you, what would you do to stop me from hiring 1,000 lawyers to tie up the court system?
I don't have a proposition. I haven't been able to figure it out myself, but I believe that talking about it is going to get the conversation going and getting ideas out there.
Okay. And again, these are, to be fair, these are partially your opinions, and we've talked about a little bit of Bernie's opinions. I don't want people to think this is what Bernie's saying.
No.
This is part Kyle, this is part Bernie. So, at least from my perspective, this is what I'm seeing, okay? It sounds to me like, as a Bernie supporter, and from kind of a few of the different policies that we've touched on, that it's almost a punishment mentality. That if you're successful, then you must be dirty, or if you've done well to build up a business.
Well, the Koch brothers are dirty. First of all, they are. That's just a fact.
Oh, and well, how is it a fact though? I watched the video. I mean, that's
You
what
didn't
I'm getting.
watch all of it.
Yeah, but what I'm getting to is, if they're so damn dirty, why haven't they been nailed to the wall in court? We just saw activists were able
because
to.
they practically own the political system. You see, literally, almost every single Republican presidential candidate has been paid by the Koch brothers.
Yes, but the activists were able to stop them without money. So if it's that easy, why
It's not that easy though.
What did that group do that nobody else could?
They fucking stood until somebody they attempted as much as they could to stop it. They didn't. That's all they did. They just stopped it. They didn't prevent new legislation from coming out. That's probably still going to happen, and they didn't prevent it from just not existing. Period. Because it's still going to be pushed.
Okay.
That's the agenda.
I'm going to set aside let's say the Koch brothers are the dirtiest motherfuckers on earth. I'm going to set that aside. I'm not going to, because we'll have too long of a conversation going into the Koch brothers. But back to what I was saying.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like a punishment mentality. I'm not the Koch brothers. I'm the guy running Jimco.
Well, I feel like if you do illegal things, you should be punished for it.
But I'm not. I make widgets, and people love my widgets. But
that's your business. But I'm talking about the Koch brothers.
I'm talking about Jimco, because not everybody is the Koch brothers.
Right.
I mean, isn't that what representative government is supposed to be? I mean, it shouldn't just be a few people hate other people.
Your company is a theoretical company. That's not applicable in this situation.
Because we're having a theoretical conversation about how these laws would be applied. You can't tell me you know what every billionaire is like, can you? Do you know every billionaire in the country and whether they're dirty or not? Can you name every billionaire? Name 500 for me.
500 billion.
They're Fortune 500. Name the richest people.
I believe the stream would be over by the time I had the list to be able to name all the 500 billionaires in this country.
Well, you don't want hypothetical. What I'm saying is, can you guarantee for me right now that the richest 500 people in this country are all dirty?
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that.
So then it's not a completely hypothetical situation. Replace me with one of them. Replace one of them with me. So Jimco now replaces, I don't know, fucking Microsoft or Apple or whoever you think isn't dirty, whoever you think isn't the bad guy.
So that's the thing. The previous CEO, Bill Gates, is in favor of this redistribution. Essentially, he's in favor of having a high marginal tax rate on the 1%.
That's great for Bill Gates, but I'm Jim from Jimco. I'm not Bill Gates.
Yeah, you can house that opinion that you don't want to be taxed that much. That's fine.
No, I'm saying how is it fair? How is that not let's get him attitude? I've worked hard to build up my company. I've busted my ass. I've provided thousands of jobs for Americans. I've created a product that's known for being made in America, and now I'm paying 90% in taxes, $15 minimum wage. Apparently I can't run think tanks or put up legislation because my money is too influential. It feels like everybody's out to get me. It feels like just because I'm successful and I worked hard and I run a business that does well, I'm somehow to be punished for that. It feels like this mentality in America, at least currently, is nobody can succeed, because if you succeed, you're different than everybody else, so we need to pull you back down to the level. We need to create a common theme for everybody. Everybody needs to be equal, and the way we enforce that is by making any difference disappear. So if you're rich, we're going to just take your money away, and now you're just like us, man. So it feels like I'm getting punished for being exceptional. It feels like I'm getting punished for working hard and having a drive and a dedication to do better than the average person.
I feel like as a billionaire, you shouldn't have a victim complex. You've done the work. You've made the money that you need. There just so happens to be in the entire economic system, there's an excess of wealth in the top 1% versus the middle class.
Kyle, do you think it's a smart idea to tell the richest people who run the biggest corporations in your country to shut the fuck up? And I know you didn't say that. This is me talking. But to shut the fuck up because they have a victim complex. You don't think that's going to make them go, you know what? America...
I'm not telling you, yeah,
obviously. But you know what, America? You're treating me like crap, essentially. You're telling me I should stop whining that my opinion doesn't matter. I'm just going to take my money and my business and go elsewhere. What do you think is going to happen to the economy if you have a flight? You know, look at here's a good example. Look at a city where white flight takes place. You know, you have this tax-paying group of people that basically leave because they don't like the diversity, right? You look at a Detroit or something like that, and the economic situation gets worse. So what happens when it's not white flight? What happens when it's billionaire flight, when it's millionaire flight, when the people running the corporations and the businesses leave because they feel that they're, God, I don't know, that the diversity being thrust upon them is not what they want?
I'm sorry, I'm still not necessarily sure what you're trying to get across here. Would you mind explaining again?
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can put this better. What do you think is going to happen to the United States economy if you piss off the people running your businesses who provide all these jobs, if you piss off the rich people who are investing in the country through different means, through banks and the stock market and everything else, and they go somewhere else? What do you think is going to happen to the country when that money is no longer there and when those jobs are no longer there?
I think capitalism will be stepping in, and I think new people will take the podium and say, this is how we should be doing things.
So you're looking for a best case scenario of somebody else will do it.
I'm not outright saying that's what's going to happen, but I'm saying when desperation comes in and we need like different approaches to business that we already execute, but we want to do it differently. I think that's where capitalism comes in, and I think that's where the newer systems and the newer CEOs that bring about more jobs and more business will step in.
Okay, well, let's say you're right. Let's say that happens. People rise up and they create new companies, and those companies do okay. What happens in the meantime? Because again, remember, the Robin Hood tax and the funding for different programs are coming from these rich people who have now left. So who's paying for college?
Obviously, it's going to be there's going to be an inflow of taxes in the system still. It's not like there's just going to be a one-time tax and then it's just all going to go away.
Right. No, per annum, that's fine. But what I'm saying is, once these people leave, let's say they leave within the first year, and these people starting these new businesses to replace them take years to get off the ground. Who's paying for college?
I feel like if anybody tried to leave that was part of a big corporation, they would probably be pursued by the federal government. I would assume so. I'm not saying that's the proper solution.
No. How are they going to be pursued? I'm leaving the country. I renounce my citizenship. I'm taking my company. What grounds do you have to keep me here?
Obligations to the IRS.
All the taxes have been paid, so I've left. How are you going to keep me here?
I don't believe that's even relevant at that point. If you've paid all your taxes that fairly and you've gotten rid of the tax havens and things like that, and you want to leave the country, you're fully capable of leaving the country.
Right, but the tax haven money isn't the one that's being proposed to pay for tuition. It's the Robin Hood tax on investments in the stock market. So I'm saying,
I believe it's going to be a combination of all the things, but I don't know about directly where each money is going to go.
I do, because I read Bernie Sanders' website. What I'm saying is, I've left the country. I paid my taxes owed to the IRS that aren't going for your college tuition. It's going to take you years to replace me. Who is paying for your college?
The people and the corporations.
There are no corporations. They've left.
You can't just say that all the corporations are just going to leave.
You just told me, as a rich person, a billionaire who runs multiple, right? I mean, isn't that the complaint, that there's big? Wait, Kyle.
Take their business elsewhere.
Right, Kyle. Isn't the big accusation that the major corporations own a ton, like PepsiCo owns all these subsidiaries? The Koch brothers own all these subsidiaries. So if you get one or two people that own 1,000 companies to say, fuck it, I'm going to Europe, or fuck it, I'm going to South America, that's suddenly a big deal. So who is paying? Who is going to pay for our college when you piss off the people? Not to mention all the jobs they just took. You're talking about people starting new businesses. How the fuck are they going to support themselves when they're not working in the factory anymore? They're not working on the pipeline anymore. They're not working on any of these things because I've gone to Brazil, or I've gone to India, or I've gone to China.
Well, Bernie Sanders does propose infrastructure jobs and things like that. If you're talking about what you want to do for generating income and things like that, that's obviously going to be taxed into the system as well. And I believe through that infrastructure and creating infrastructure, it's going to create more opportunities to create more jobs and things like that. And I believe it's not something that you can answer right now because as the time comes, there's going to be newer things coming out, like newer technologies and newer job fields and things like that. It's not something that you can put a definitive answer on right now.
Isn't this a problem with the American mentality, though? To put off the worries of tomorrow and just live today. I mean,
that's been the American motto since before World War I.
That I'm saying, isn't that a problem with our mentality, though? You're saying, don't worry about it. New technologies will fix it. How do we know? How do we know that new technologies are going to fill the void?
Because it's new technologies have been developed for years. It's just a fact of life.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, how do we know they're going to replace what's lost?
I'm not saying. See, you're saying that things are going to be lost. You don't know that. You're saying that all these businesses are going to take their businesses elsewhere.
Kyle, brass tacks. Let's be realistic here. If I told you a new political system was coming into place tomorrow, and I'm going to take 90% of your shit, you're telling me, and you could avoid that by moving one house over or one apartment over. You're not going to do that. You're going to stay there and let me take 90% of your shit. Realistically, honest to God, you're going to sit there. Let me take 90% of your shit. And when you get upset about it, you're going to put up with me telling you, don't whine.
No, dude, that's not even what I'm saying. That's not even what I'm saying.
So what are you saying?
I'm saying that when this new tax marginal tax rate goes into effect, they're going to tax the 1%, and then they're going to take that money, they're going to put it into the education system, and more people are going to become educated to be able to create more jobs. Like, it's not something that you could say, yeah, you're going to take that money, give that person to person A, and they are going to create this new job in 15 years because that's what that money's going for. You can't say that's definitely what's going to happen, but you have to give that opportunity to people so they can create these jobs. And so they can
you're going to stick around and let me take 90% of your shit, not just for 1 year, but for the 7 or 8 years it's going to take for the kid that's supposed to replace you, right? To go through college, to start a small business, to grow the small business to a medium-sized one, and then to a large one and become a corporation. Isn't that worse? Because now you're doing it for 8 years rather than 1. You're going to sit there and let me do that for 8 years to you?
I don't know how he's going to manage to... I don't know if he's going to change his plans or anything like that, but I don't think that having a consistent 90% marginal tax rate is going to do anything for a longer period of time. Because that would literally mean communism, and I don't think Bernie Sanders isn't a communist, and he's not.
It's sounding like it. That's what I'm getting at. It sounds like we're getting to.
That's the thing. He's not. He's a.
How is he not? It's wealth redistribution. So how is he not a communist?
But he doesn't believe it in the sense that that's the only solution.
Well, yeah, but it's a solution affecting me. So from my perspective, it's communism.
It's the solution to our current political state and to our current economic state. And then as time goes on, he may change where we need to go as a country in the economic situation. He's even go on the record of saying that he's not a firm believer in pure socialism. He's still a believer in capitalism if it's regulated properly, just as with socialism.
Okay, but what is the form of that regulation taking? Because it sounds like you can be a capitalist as long as you don't earn over this amount of money. It sounds like we want the government to intervene when somebody's too successful, right?
There's a point when you have these huge mega corporations like the Koch brothers, they almost become like barons. That's a problem. That is a problem.
Right, but what about the people that aren't the Koch brothers?
What about them? Well, I don't understand what you're getting at.
What I'm getting at is, why are we punishing people who are succeeding?
Okay, that's a problem. You have this idea that these corporations are the victims here, when it's exactly the opposite. They're not the victims; they're the aggressors.
Corporations are run by people who found them, people who work at them, people who dedicate time to them. So they are, in an essence, they're run by people. Corporations aren't people. You're right, but they're run by people who are affected by this. So why are we punishing those people who build the corporations, who run the corporations, and saying, because you're doing well, you should be paying more than everybody else, you shouldn't have as much of an opinion as everybody else, and you just need to stop whining and deal with the fact that kids need education.
The worst of the worst of the billionaires and the big corporations, they influence the political system to give them tax breaks and to give them effectively more money, unfairly.
How is it unfair? How is what they're doing unfair? Tell me that.
Because the politicians don't represent what the people believe, and what they essentially undermine the political system.
No, what I mean is, how is them exerting their influence? So this sounds less like it's a problem with the corporations who want the best deal they can get, and more of a problem with politicians.
That's another huge. I wouldn't say corporations are at fault. I'm not saying corporations are at fault. It's the people. It's the worst people that run the worst corporations that are at fault, and the politicians.
Okay, but I would hope, at least from my perspective, you're seeing how I'm seeing this. It feels like a lot of vague. There are bad guys out there. They're rich people, and they're bad, and we should do something about it.
I'm not saying all rich people are bad.
And it sounds like you're saying, well, shit, new technology is going to come out and it'll fix stuff, and AI is going to come out and that's going to fix stuff. I don't feel like, when we talked on Facebook, you had told me I didn't understand the situation well enough. I feel like you don't, because I'm not getting really good details here on how any of this is supposed to. I'm being. You can't say I haven't been fair with you. I've let you talk. I've let you, show me videos.
You have been fair, but you're being disingenuous.
No, I'm being 100% with you, Kyle. I don't feel like I'm getting realistic details from you on how any of this is going to work. It feels like a lot of vague generalities. Like
okay, you could say that literally about any other presidential candidate as well. But
you're right, and I'm going
Sanders
to.
Is the only one that has a logical plan for the most part, up until when things need to be changed.
Logic doesn't work without details. It sounds like a lot of wishful thinking. And you're right. I am going to say that about a lot of presidential candidates. I've said this on Ask FM. I've said it on Twitter. I've said it any social media account I have. I support none of them. There is not one candidate that I support. And that's not, as you alluded to, because of apathy or disinterest. It's because I am knowledgeable about what they represent. And because none of them represent what I believe in. I'm not willing to take...
What exactly do you believe in then, Jim?
Which issue do you want to talk about? We've got 100 different issues. I don't believe in Citizens United.
About this particular issue with the politicians and the corporations being able to influence legislation. Like, what do you think should be done?
I believe corporations have a right to... I believe that if you have money, you have a right to spend that money however you want. At the same time, I believe that politicians should have regulations in place that oversee how much money they can accept. I think super PACs need new legislation put in back to
I agree.
minimize the amount of influence they have. But I wouldn't punish the rich guy because he wants to spend the money. Instead, I would put safeguards in place to stop the politician from accepting the money.
But see, the situation we have now is that those rich billionaires, they have influenced the politicians to give them tax breaks and all these systems that allow them to essentially redistribute the income from the workers more to the CEOs and to the higher ups.
Kyle, whose fault is that? That's the American people's fault. They voted those politicians out. They're not in there for life.
Absolutely, and that's why you need to educate. That's why Bernie Sanders is trying to get people educated.
So are you telling me that every American voter up until Bernie Sanders has been stupid?
I wouldn't say that, but we got Bush into office, and I don't know what that says about the country.
What about Obama? What does that say?
Obama's better. I don't think he's great, but he's better.
How is he better?
He instituted Obamacare. I think that's very beneficial. I know people directly that have benefited from Obamacare, and it's allowed them to get on their feet.
I thought one of Bernie Sanders' platforms was to get rid of Obamacare and make a single-payer system because he didn't like the way it functioned.
I think that's even better.
Okay, so why didn't Obama institute a single-payer system?
Because he's just another politician. That's all I can say. He was a senator, and then he was.
Well, Bernie Sanders is a senator too. How do you know he's not going to just be another Obama?
He's more principled than Obama.
But how do I measure that, though? I mean, how do I know that he's more principled?
He's stuck to a lot of his positions over the past, I want to say like 30 years, and maybe even more in the House and the Senate.
Okay. I think this segues into, and again, I'd have... Oh, hold on. I'd have a longer conversation with you, and we'll close out, and I'll let you have the last word too. To be fair, but this segues into the last thing I kind of wanted to touch on. Okay, which was what happened over the weekend. So I'm going to let you, if you want.
Oh, you want to talk about the server with the data information?
Yeah, I wanted to go over that because you brought up principled, and I thought this kind of touches on it. So I'm going to let you bring it up, or I'm going to let you explain your perspective on it if you want to before we get into it. Go ahead.
Okay, so basically what happened was the Bernie Sanders campaign, the staffers, they told the DNC about this issue of the firewall not being up and being able to access both Hillary and Bernie Sanders campaign information from both sides. Like, they were both able to go into each other's files and things like that. They warned the DNC. They told them about it. They didn't do anything about it. Then one of Sanders' staffers decided to, I don't know if it was just one or if it was multiple, but only, I know as of right now, there was only publicized that one of them got fired for doing this. They went into they took the information essentially, and the DNC was notified, and they suspended the Sanders campaign. Sanders threatened to sue for I believe it was Sanders personally, threatened to sue for $600,000 a day on the 18th, starting that day, and then they immediately revoked his suspension. And I believe that it was more of an attack on Bernie Sanders from Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Hillary Clinton, because they've been working together for really long to get her into office. I believe this was essentially an attempt to undermine Bernie Sanders.
Okay, and I've heard that too, and we'll get into that. So to kind of go over at least my understanding of this, okay? It's essentially close to what you're saying. I know that there was an issue with the firewall from the software that was being used.
Bernie Sanders personally had nothing to do with this. Too.
No, yeah, and I agree. I know that Bernie Sanders himself wasn't accessing the information.
Mm-hmm.
But there was an issue with the firewall or security, but basically each campaign could see each other, that the issue has been reported by the Sanders campaign ahead of time, and that months later, I think it was 2 months later, this current event, what just recently happened essentially, it was more than just an observation that there was penetration that happened. The New York Times, I believe, was the one that reported that there were 4 different user accounts that had seen it. Others had reported it was just the one. Sanders himself, though, when they gave the press conference, if you rewatch the press conference, does allude to the fact that there were more than a few people. It was more than just one. They said we're investigating the others, but they let go of their national data director, because that was one of the people involved. I can't speculate as to who the other 3 were, if there were 3 others, or maybe maybe he used 4 different accounts. I don't know. I have multiple accounts. Maybe he did the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But this penetration happened, and then of course the DNC shuts down his access to the voter banks. Sanders goes in and he sues, and then they reinstate it.
He threatens to sue. He didn't really get a chance to actually sue and get any reprimands, but
right. Fair enough. He threatens to sue, begins the process of suing, let's say, and the DNC buckles and they say, okay, we're gonna put this through.
Yeah.
Now, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who is the head of the DNC,
she's terrible.
All right. It's my understanding that the person that runs the company that put the software in place to separate, put this curtain between the different campaigns, that it's one of her, I believe, relatives or somebody associated directly with Debbie Wasserman Schultz who runs that.
Right.
And
I believe it was her husband or something like that. I don't know off the top of my head.
And neither do I.
I believe his name's Aaron.
Right, and neither do I. But I do know there's an association. And I know there's been speculation, because of the ties that Wasserman and this company might have to Hillary Clinton, that this could have been...
She was one of her staffers in the 2008 campaign.
Right, that there could have been collusion, or that potentially Hillary had set this up to try to draw them into doing something untoward, to use it against Sanders.
Hillary has a history of doing political attacks on people and having a dark history.
Right, doing illegal things, doing dark stuff.
Yeah.
So this touches on the principal argument. Bernie Sanders at the debates has repeatedly stated, I don't care about the emails when dealing with Benghazi. They're not interesting to me. They're not important. Let's talk about something else.
They're not relevant to him.
But here's my thing. If he's so principled, here Hillary has done essentially an underhanded, dirty, illegal thing, potentially. And in regards to the emails, in regards to Benghazi, she would have done something illegal, underhanded, and dirty. So why is it that, this doesn't seem principled to me. Sanders cares about it when it directly affects him, but when it doesn't directly affect him, he doesn't care. If she was such a terrible candidate with this dark baggage, why didn't he go after her for it?
Because he's trying to disassociate from her completely.
How is he associated with the email scandal of Benghazi?
He's not.
So then why wouldn't he go after her about it?
Because it's not related to his campaign and what he's trying to talk about.
He's principled, right? He doesn't believe in illegal things, I would suppose?
Wait, what do you mean?
Bernie Sanders is a principled man. He doesn't believe in illegal acts. Bernie Sanders wouldn't do something illegal, would he?
I can't say he wouldn't, but he
I mean, from your perspective, you believe he's principled, right? That he's a good guy, that he wouldn't do something illegal?
I believe he's principled, yes.
Okay, fair enough. I'm not saying that
I would never go out and say that somebody wouldn't do something illegal or they wouldn't do that, because you can't determine somebody just by word of mouth. You have to go through their history and what they've done as a person to be able to determine something like that.
Fair enough. But don't you think it's a bit... See, it comes off to me like, again, unless it affects Bernie directly, he doesn't give a shit. So here's Hillary, who did something that people really want fucking answers to with this email thing in Benghazi. She's been dancing around the issue. She's been just dodging it left and right. Here's his chance to come in and say, hey, you know what? I'm a principled guy. I wouldn't do something like this. I think it's wrong. But he doesn't go after her for it. But now that she does something similar, she does something underhanded with technology through a tech company, he does care because it directly affects him. How is that principled? He cares when it affects him, but he doesn't when it doesn't affect him.
Because when he started this campaign, he said it was not going to be an attack campaign. He did not want to just spend his campaign money on attacking other candidates. He said that from the beginning. But now that he's been brought into it, somebody essentially attacked him. They tried to shut him down. They tried to strong arm him, and he's been effectively brought into it.
Okay, but this is where my fear. This is one of my concerns, I should say, with Sanders. Is it seems like he has these policy plans that affect other people, and he thinks they're good because they don't affect him. Just like the emails didn't affect him, so it wasn't an issue. But the moment that it does affect him, it suddenly is an issue. So here he wants to institute these different economic policies, the different educational and governmental policies that affect other people, but because they don't directly affect him as a person or his campaign or his presidency, he doesn't care.
Well, because this was an attempt to shut his campaign down. That's why he's pissed.
Well, you don't think he should be pissed that somebody who was in a position that Hillary Clinton was in might have done something that... I mean, you don't think that this Benghazi thing might be important?
It's not his business, and it's up to the voters to decide who they want as president.
Oh, we're gonna have to disagree. I think you might be... That's fair enough. We've got to kind of be a little tight on time here.
Right.
You know, God, there were other things I wanted to get into, but I think it's been fairly okay. I mean, we touched on a few different things. Is there anything particularly you wanted to bring up?
I think there's something important to say, that the more you talk about people like Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump and things like that, it just gives them more airtime. It gives them more potential to be appealing to those types of people that want to be appealed to, if you know what I'm saying.
No, I don't. What types of people?
The people that vote for Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, those types of people. When they just hear about these kind of scandals and things going on, and they just hearing facts and things like that doesn't necessarily dissuade them from wanting to vote them. It just encourages them to vote for them even more. Just look at Donald Trump. He's received so much fire. Same with Hillary Clinton. They've received so much fire for the things that they've done. But what is the only outcome that's happened? They've gained more voters. They've gained more attention in the media.
Okay. Is there anything in particular? Because I'm going to kind of start to wrap this up a little bit. Before I give you the last word, is there anything in particular that we didn't get to touch on that you really thought we should? Is there anything in particular, one subject, that you really wanted to bring up?
I just think that people should give Bernie a chance to talk about the issues, and if you have certain things that you're questioning about, try to reach out to him and talk to him of things so he can talk about them, and so he can get detailed about the things that we were talking about earlier, like how he would propose to pay for things with our taxes after the 90% marginal tax and things like that. I think people should attempt to reach out and talk to him more, because he's one of the most personable politicians and presidential candidates out there right now. I think he's one of the most... he's capable of being influenced by the people like you and me.
Okay. How would... So you want more people to interact with them. What would you say is the best way to do that? How would be the best way for me as just your typical voter or interested voter to get a hold of Bernie Sanders, or to get him to at least look at something I'm concerned about or maybe answer it? What's the best way to reach out?
Social media and attending his rallies and attending things like that, because he does talk to the people there.
Kyle, what I'm saying, Kyle, is I'm giving you a chance to pitch a particular community. Is there a particular website that's good to go to? Would you recommend
Twitter, Facebook, there's all of them, like all the typical social media sites that you would use.
Okay, all right, fair enough. We're gonna close this up here. I'll give you a minute here. Give us your final thoughts on Bernie Sanders. Take a minute and tell me, address the people watching. Why do you think somebody should vote for Bernie Sanders?
Because he's interested in your freedoms. He's wanting to get rid of the TPP, and he's wanting to get rid of all these bigger government programs, and he wants to be able people to have freedoms of expression and things like that, but he also wants to keep the corporations from being able to rule over what we're able to do and what we're able to buy in the economic situation. Preventing them from determining our economic situation, the corporations.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Well, I appreciate you coming on. We went a little longer than I thought, but I thought it was a good conversation. Again, thank you, Kyle, for coming out and
thanks, Jim.
Giving me your opinion on Bernie Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you have a good day.
Wait, if you ever want to discuss more as well, I'm available.
Okay, not a problem.
Yeah. All right.
Bye. All right, that would be the end of the Pitch Your Candidate segment. We had Kyle on who talked to us about Bernie Sanders. Again, just kind of going on what I said earlier. My problems with this particular candidate. I just feel like, and I hope Kyle kind of got what I was getting at, but it feels like Sanders likes to institute policies that don't directly affect him. It feels like a lot of it is punishment driven, that you're basically being told if you're too successful, that's a problem. I think it's going to cause people to want to leave the United States and take their money with them. I think that's going to have an impact on the economy. In regards to his College for All Act, it's not just paid by the Robin Hood tax rate. It's not just the rich people paying for it. It's distributed amongst us all. All the taxpayers, all 120 million of you, are going to be shelling out between $250 to $300 per year. If it's a per year thing, I don't know, but you're definitely going to be paying for it. 33 billion is offset onto the states. So unless Bernie wants to dictate to the states how they spend their money and go through all of their books and decide what programs get cut, more than likely it means you're going to be paying more in taxes. Now, we didn't get a chance to kind of touch on Black Lives Matters. I would have liked to have gotten to that, but we ran out of time. We talked a little bit too about DNC Chairman Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the shenanigans that have been going on with the DNC. But anybody in the audience, if you've got a candidate for the next one, feel free to pitch them. I'd like to try to get somebody on the right, maybe a Rubio supporter or a Cruz supporter or a Chris Christie supporter would be great. Or who was the woman who ate dog biscuits? I can't remember what her name is. But I'd love to get somebody on to explain to me how eating dog food is going to save the country, because that was phenomenal. All right, so we're moving on from that. I would like to talk. Again, this is running long, so we've really only got a half an hour left here, but I would like to talk about Jeb, about good old Jeb Bush and his disastrous political campaign. Now, this is a man who's got $100 million in super PAC money, and I believe 20 to 25 million earned on his own. I had the exact figure earlier, but I've lost it at this point because I was kind of looking through different charts and graphs. But he is by far the most bankrolled candidate out there right now. He's above Hillary Clinton. He's above Donald Trump. He's above all of them as far as the money being put into his campaign is concerned. $130 million. And currently he has between 3 to 5% of the vote. 3 to 5% of potential voters are interested in him. When you look at all the different polling that's been done over the last couple of months, his money has bought him nothing. Now, how depressing is that? Imagine yourself as Jeb Bush. Your father has been president. Your half-retarded brother has been president. And you've got $130 million to put you into the White House. And you can't get more than, I believe Rand Paul has 3% right now. You can't get more than Rand Paul, who has like a tenth of the money that you have. The guac man is doing real bad right now. Now, if you watch the Republican debates, and this is there are a couple things I want to talk about Jeb, really, but if you watch the recent Republican debates with Jeb Bush, he tried his hardest to come off as a commanding, high-energy candidate, because that's been one of the accusations against him. Jeb Bush is low energy. Jeb Bush is falling asleep because he's listening to Carson too much. Dr. Ambien over there is putting him to bed. So he tried to kind of, straighten his back up, puff out his chest, and he went after Donald Trump a little bit. And it ended disastrously. As Trump had put it, I'm at 42%. You're at 3%. Jeb had tried to say, you can't insult your way into the White House. Well, the polling would disagree with you, Jeb. It seems like you very much can do that, or at least you can insult your way into beating Jeb Bush in an electoral race. It did not work out well for him. In fact, if you look at, repeatedly, all the debates that he's been at, he is always awkwardly standing there, unable to get his points across. People say that he is the most informed. I was looking at news reports about his donors. His donors talking about why they supported him still, the money they'd given. I believe George Bush just yesterday or the day before had gone out and talked to his donor base saying, don't worry, guys, Jeb's doing okay. And some of the donors had said, oh, we believe he's the most adult person on the stage. He's the most mature person that's in the field. They were very impressed with how mature an adult Jeb Bush was. Well, that's great. His maturity sure is worth $130 million in 3% of the polls. But he cannot. There's no connection. Jeb Bush just isn't able to connect with anybody. He can't get interested voters to pay attention. He can't get the Republican base to pay attention. The media pretty much ignores him. He's the incredibly shrinking man. He diminishes every single day. He gets smaller and smaller and smaller because he doesn't have a presence. He's not very commanding. And every time he does try to be commanding, pardon me, every time he does try to be commanding, it backfires on him. If you saw when he tried to get Trump to apologize for a comment that he said he made about his wife, Trump refused. When he tried to directly attack Trump and say, you can't insult your way, you'd be terrible, he got smacked around. He got smacked around to the point where it's almost cringe-inducing. You almost feel bad for Jeb Bush. And yet he persists. If you want a real laugh, go look at Jeb Bush's Twitter account. In fact, let's talk about Jeb Bush's social media presence because I think this is kind of interesting. If you go look at Jeb Bush's YouTube, his official YouTube page right now, because we're talking, we're in the age of social media. I don't think anybody can dismiss the fact that Obama and the Democrats really utilize social media pretty effectively to get into the White House. So it's a key component. It's a big cornerstone of any modern campaign. You need to have a good social media presence. So let's see what Jeb Bush's social media presence looks like. Now, if you're listening to this, I want you just to take a moment and go to Jeb Bush's official YouTube page. I want you to click on the video tab, and I want you to set it to most popular, and tell me what you see, because this is what I see when I do that. The only popular videos on Jeb Bush's social media account, his YouTube page, are Donald Trump videos. If a video has Donald Trump's picture in it, or if a video has Donald Trump's name in it, it gets hundreds of thousands of views. But if it's just Jeb Bush, if it's him talking about policy, or if it's a new TV ad, or if it's anything just related to him, it gets thousands of views. Jeb Bush only gets views on his YouTube page when he's talking about other people that aren't Jeb Bush. That is how uninteresting Jeb Bush is. People go to his YouTube page to watch shit about other people because they can't stand Jeb Bush himself. And I think what really encapsulates this, if you go to his Twitter account, there's a New Hampshire town hall that he's talking about, that he's going to go to. And it really kind of, it sums it up. It sums up the kind of feeling about Jeb Bush. Here he is in the middle of this I don't know what it is, a warehouse. And kind of a crescent moon shape around him, a semicircle around him. You've got a bunch of people gathered, and they're Jeb Bush's. He's standing in the middle. They're all half-circled around him. And directly behind him is a fucking Abrams tank with its barrel, its gigantic barrel. And it looks, from the perspective, it looks like the barrel is going right over Jeb Bush's shoulder. Is pointed directly at the audience. And I think that really sums it up. Jeb Bush needs to put a fucking tank cannon facing at an audience to get them to sit through one of his speeches. That is how uninteresting Jeb Bush is. It looks like the only way he can have a captive audience is by literally having a captive audience. It looks like he's holding them hostage. Every single thing he does related to social media always always backfires. His presence on the web is utterly disastrous. If you want a better example of that, I would say go to his website, but if you go to jebbush.com, that's not even his domain. I believe it's jeb2016.com is his domain. Jeb Bush has been taken by somebody else, and that's real entertaining. If you want to swing by that one and take a look at the messages that have been put up about Jeb Bush, knock yourself out. But if you go to his actual official website, you can go and buy a guacamole bowl. This is where he gets his loving nickname Guacman from. A $75 guacamole bowl that you could get on Amazon for $20. Because that's how disconnected the people and Jeb Bush's social media machine are. They don't understand that people can easily look up information, that they can easily go to another web page, that they can open another tab. So I'm going to donate $75 to get a fucking guacamole bowl and Jeb's guac recipe, and I could just go to Amazon and get the same fucking thing for $20. He's just, and what does he need to sell a $75 guacamole bowl for in the first place? He has $130 million dues. Jeb Bush has more money than anybody else in the campaign right now at his disposal to use on advertising and on campaigning and on whistle stopping. What does he need to sell guac bowls at a 300% markup for when he already has a war chest of $130 million? Jeb, what are you doing? He needs to drop out. And I love the fact, this is one of the things I find endearing about Trump. This is one of the things I do like about him. He will shit on people, and it's usually funny when he does. And he's been shitting on Jeb Bush on social media over the last couple of days. If you go look at Trump's Twitter, he got upset about a political campaign ad that Jeb had released where it basically cut out Donald Trump's responses to him and tried to make him look bad. And so Trump, he went in full tilt. He didn't hold back. He told Jeb that he was a disgrace and an embarrassment to the Bush name and that he should just drop out. Because the American people don't want another Bush in the White House. He is dumb as a rock. And I think that really sums it up. If you go and watch Jeb Bush interviews, he always does this, I want to be really delicate in how I say this, but if you go watch a Jeb Bush interview, he gives you the impression that he might be somewhere on the autism spectrum. Now, I'm not saying if you put a toy train in front of the motherfucker that he's going to sit there and play with it for 8 hours, but he might bat the caboose around for about 20 or 30 minutes, if you get what I mean. He has this look that he gives you when he's really confused or he doesn't understand how to pick up on a social cue, where he pulls his head back, where his chin almost goes flush up against his neck, and he does this really, really forced, painful-looking grin. It's the Jeb Bush deer in the headlights look. It's the look that Jeb Bush does when he doesn't know what the hell to do. And he does that a lot. At the majority of debates, he'll do it. When somebody else says something, I want you to really pay attention to Jeb Bush. Go re-watch some of that debate footage. And he gets this look on his face like he doesn't know where he is or how he's supposed to react. He gets very confused and flustered. I think if one of his opponents were to bring a flashlight on stage and just beam it at him, he would probably cry. Because I don't think he understands that he's running for president. That might be what the issue is here. Maybe Jeb Bush doesn't fully understand that he's running for political office. Maybe he's really confused. Jeb Bush is the kid nobody would let in the treehouse. That's another good way to put it. Imagine you're with your group of friends and you've got that more affluent kid, the rich kid that's got the tree fort that everybody likes. Jeb Bush would be the kid running last up the ladder to have the door slammed in his face. He just doesn't quite fit in. And his polling numbers really reflect that. Nobody wants to let him in the treehouse to see all the cool shit they've got gathered. Somebody I see in chat is saying Jeb Bush for R9K. Jeb Bush would be a good R9K. He kind of is a robot, isn't he? Jeb Bush is a little bit of a robot, I would say. You're probably right on that. But he seems very disconnected, I guess is another easier way to put it. He doesn't seem like he fully grasps what the hell is going on. He gets that confused look, and then he tries to be high energy, but he's not really a high energy guy. He's more very low energy guy. He's more laid back. Maybe that's why those donors said, he strikes me as being more adult, more mature. In fact, there's a really good quote. God, I hope I can find this. Let me find this because it's so fucking insulting. Of course. Apparently, I'm not going to be able to find it. I'm cut off from the website. It's one of those you need to have a subscription to read it. But essentially, somebody was interviewing a Jeb Bush supporter, a donor, and the donor had said, "Yeah, Jeb isn't really doing really well. People don't really connect with him. Nothing personal, but you're just unlikable, Jeb." Is really what they're saying. Nothing personal. That should be his motto. You know, he's got that banner up there. Jeb can fix it. How am I supposed to take this candidate seriously? Why would I vote for Jeb Bush? Jeb Bush can't even fix his 3% polling numbers. How is he going to fix a country? If Jeb Bush can't get himself at least into the double digits, I really highly doubt he's going to fix any economic or security issues that face the country as a whole. And yet that's his logo. Jeb can fix it. Or he's got that Yeb banner where it's just Jeb exclamation mark. Like it looks like it was designed by a graphics design student who just graduated. They're like, hey, you know that Yelp logo? Let's make that Jeb's logo. That'll do well. You know, a lot of people use Yelp. I bet they'll get the Yelp vote for us. It's disastrous. It really is disastrous. The clip that I'd opened up with at the beginning of the show really kind of sums it up. He's just very awkward. And it almost feels like the other candidates pick on him. Kind of like, yeah, he's that friend in the group that nobody really likes, but he just kind of hangs around. So occasionally they'll make him get him a soda and then pick on him a little bit. And that really sums up, I think, quite well Jeb Bush's campaign. Now, how long he's going to stay in, I don't know. When you look at the news stories talking about his donor list, they're backing him. I mean, there was a ad campaign that went down in, I believe it was Iowa and 2 other states. It's a big push. It's a $30 million ad campaign that if not, and it hasn't moved any of his poll numbers. Now, one of the donors to that particular push had given $3 million. It was a guy from Miami, Florida, one of his billionaire donors. And he was talking about how confident he was that it was going to finally have an impact. You just spent $30 million trying to get people to pay attention to him, and it had no impact at all. Just like his social media online, it has zero impact. It does nothing. And yet these people are so confident throwing money. It's really remarkable to me that they continue to do so. But there he is. He gave $3 million. Now, maybe that's because he's a billionaire and he doesn't really care. When you look at the donor list, you'll find that a lot of the people that have given money to Jeb Bush are extraordinarily wealthy. I think it's like 3 or 4% of his donor base aren't multimillionaires. So maybe to them, the $3 million isn't a big deal. Maybe to them, $3 million, yeah, it's not something to worry about. It's not a concern. It's not high on the list. But if you're looking at a potential candidate, somebody who's actually got a chance of getting into office, I'm going to say that he's had enough exposure by this point where you should start to see some return on that investment. You can't tell me that after doing a $30 million ad campaign on television and getting no movement in the polls, that that's a good sign of things to come. Because it's not. That's not. Jeb Bush is not going to appeal to anybody. He's not moved his poll numbers at all. Why it is people in his PACs and his super PACs, all these other donors that are coming forward, are still giving him money is beyond me. But yet he still somehow manages to do it. And that's going to be his legacy. You know, people joke about George Bush. They joke about his brother. They talk about how he was this dumb cowboy. Well, you know what the dumb cowboy had that Jeb doesn't have? Likability. People liked Bush. Now, they thought he was stupid as pig shit, but they thought he was a guy that was somebody they could sit down and have a beer with. He was a guy that they could talk with, even if they had to talk very slowly. But Jeb doesn't have that. He doesn't have that connection with a voter base. He doesn't have that connection with people. It's something you're seeing in Trump, though, isn't it? You know, Trump says something and people laugh, or Trump says something and people relate to it. Whether, you know, again, there's going to be people on the left and the right that disagree with Trump, but the people that support him find a connection with him. The people that supported Jeb Bush's brother found a connection with him. But nobody seems to be able to find a connection with Jeb Bush himself. He's just not a likable person. He doesn't captivate people. He doesn't interest them. He doesn't draw them in. So I'm just amazed at this point that he still has a campaign that keeps going on. His poll numbers, I'm reading the chat right now. People talking about his poll numbers suck and TV advertising is a lazy way to do a campaign. Yeah, well, you know, whether or not TV is effective or not, he's unable to run his social media. I mean, what is his refuge? Where is he going to go? In fact, you know what? I'm going to pull up right now. I'm going to pull up Jeb Bush's YouTube page, his official YouTube page. Let's look at the numbers he's pulling in for his page here. He put up, oh God, this is really bad. There are Let's Players on YouTube right now that are, you know, there are bronies and deviant artists. There are Let's Players that scream at the top of their lungs and film their television at a fucked up angle that have more views per video than Jeb Bush does. He put up a video, a couple videos, just over the last couple of days. All in all access with Jeb Bush, 2,000 views. Happy Anniversary Donald, this is his new ad campaign against Donald Trump, 4,000 views. Donald Trump Chaotic and Wrong, 13,000 views. Jeb Bush with Big in Vegas, 2,000 views. He's got videos on here that have 100 views. I want you to think about that. Name me one presidential candidate you've ever heard of that can't get more than 100 views on a video. But that's Jeb Bush. And if you go to most popular, what do we see again? Donald Trump. The real Donald Trump, 926,000 views. Judgment, and this is a Donald Trump picture talking about Donald Trump, 356,000 views. The next highest video is Making a Difference with Jeb Bush, 138,000 views. Donald Trump is pulling in 6 times the numbers on Jeb Bush's own YouTube page than Jeb Bush is pulling in. That is remarkable. If that is not a sign that this man is dead in the water, I don't know what is. You know, let me rephrase that to the Jeb Bush donors out there that are giving him hundreds of millions of dollars. I will run for president and pull in more numbers than Jeb Bush will pull in. Feel free to throw all that money at me. I can get more video views than Jeb Bush can get. I guarantee you that. Because he's inept. He's unable to connect with anybody. He's not funny. He doesn't know how to banter. He doesn't know how just to relax. He has a really cringe-inducing ad campaign where he's trying to relate to kids by wearing a hoodie. And it's just this awkward guy. It looks like he's dressed to go play golf. Trying to put on this hoodie over himself. And he struggles with it for like 20 or 30 seconds. And then he gets it and he dopily puts the hood over his head. And he acts like a skit out of a fucking TV drama. It doesn't connect with anybody. And yet he persists. He continues to do that. Now that's Jeb Bush's YouTube page. Yeah, I want to investigate his digital footprint, let's say. Now, I don't know what his metrics are on his website. I can only speculate. But if you look at Twitter, he's got 400,000 followers. Compare that to Donald Trump, who has 5.4 million. Or Hillary Clinton, who has 4.9 million. I think even Bernie Sanders has more followers on Twitter than Jeb Bush does. And the funny thing is, when you go to audit his account, you'll see that it was done last in, I believe, October, and 125,000 of them are fake. That means that 1/4 of Jeb Bush's follower base are bots. They're fake followers. They're not real. And it's not like his tweets need 400,000 people anyway. They get no traction. If you go through and you look, he'll be lucky if he gets 50 retweets, if he gets 25 favorites. He's got a social media presence that pales in comparison to an average user who just makes videos or writes blogs or runs websites. And this is a man running for president with a backing of $130 million fucking dollars, who's been on national television repeatedly and has toured the nation. And nobody cares what he says. Nobody reads what he writes. Nobody watches the videos that he produces. And so they're amazed then when they spend $30 million on a television ad campaign that gets no traction in Iowa or anywhere else. Well, look at his YouTube. Why would it get traction? You've got people that are probably Jeb Bush supporters going to watch those videos, and they're disinterested. They don't even want to watch them. There's nothing exciting about it. Jeb Bush can't fix it. That's the end reality of this. Jeb Bush needs to drop out of the race. You know, Jeb, you need to salvage what little reputation and dignity you have left at this point. The longer you persist, the more money you're going to spend and burn. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe he's so far into it at this point that he feels like he just has to keep going. Like, I've already spent millions of dollars. I have $130 million in total to use on this. I better use it. But it's not going to get him anywhere. There's not going to be some dramatic breakthrough. Even if Donald Trump were to fall off stage of a heart attack tomorrow, there's still 3 or 4 other people ahead of you, Jeb. You know, like Trump had said at the last debates, you're moving further and further off the stage, and that's true. He doesn't have the momentum to even beat a Cruz or a Rubio or a Rand Paul, let alone a Donald Trump. So when he puts up this new ad campaign saying that Donald Trump is the chaos candidate, and again, think of how ridiculous his attacks are. He's using this old political style of trying to go after his opponent, and it doesn't work because Trump isn't somebody that's going to yield to that. It doesn't work on him. So putting up these ads saying that Donald Trump is the chaos candidate, like that's his new thing. Or the ridiculous thing that he brought up in the debate where he's like, Donald likes to watch his shows. And then Jeb, social media team, it goes online and they put up polls saying, what shows does Donald Trump like to watch? You know, alluding the fact that he's uneducated and watches Saturday morning cartoons. And they've been running with that now for like a week. And nobody finds it funny. The only funny thing about Jeb Bush's political presence online are people's reactions to it. If you go look at his tweets and then read the responses, it's nothing but people shitting on him 24 hours a day. And that really is fucking great because he's so out of touch. It's time to call it quits, man. Like, I know you wanted to be president. That would have been great in your mind, right? Dad, brother, and you, all presidents. It's not going to happen. Nobody's going to elect you president. You're not going to get the nomination. I know that you've been alluding to the fact that you've got locked up and that you can push Trump out or push Cruz or Rubio out and get it for yourself, but you do not have the numbers to beat a Clinton or a Sanders in a national race. You don't have the numbers for people to even recognize who the fuck you are if you walk down the street, Jeb, let alone being a president. Chat saying he's cucked. Well, you know, cuckservative would apply to Jeb Bush at this point because he has no momentum. He's been beaten down by essentially everybody. And it seems ludicrous to me that he persists in trying to continually push forward when it is obvious the momentum of his campaign is stalled, that it's not going to go anywhere, that there's no policy he could bring up, no new platform that he could push forward that's going to draw anybody into it. Jeb Bush is done. Jeb Bush should just walk away and say sorry to the people that have given him millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. Maybe it's a competition thing. Maybe deep down Jeb Bush just hates his brother and just can't stand the thought that he was president and Jeb will never be president. You need to get over it. Scrap together the dignity that you have and walk the fuck away while you still can. Because you are killing. Maybe you could run again in 10 years. Maybe you could run again in 15 years. I don't know. But right now it's not going to happen for you. And the longer you stay into it, the bigger of a joke you become. And it will kill any chance you have ever in the future of trying this. All right. Well, again, I apologize. We got off to a late start. I wanted to do from noon to 3, but that didn't obviously happen. So we're probably going to have to... I will have to, I should say, readjust that a little bit. We've been going for about a good hour and 50 minutes. I'm going to take the last 10 minutes here and just answer any questions anybody has, any subjects you want to bring up. We'll take a couple minutes, talk about them, and then I'm going to close out the show for today. So I'll give chat a second to catch up, and I'm going to grab myself a soda here to have something to drink because my throat is a little bit parched. I see somebody bringing up in the stream that Jeb Bush is 62 years old. I don't actually know the official age of Jeb Bush. I don't know how old Jeb Bush is. If he's 62 years old, that's he probably isn't going to be running again in a decade. Wow, he is. He's 62 years old. I will say Jeb has that going for him. He does not look like he is 62 years old. He looks like a guy in his 40s or 50s. How do I feel about Rand Paul? I think that Rand Paul probably isn't going to get anywhere. Let's be honest. Rand Paul's dead in the water just like Jeb Bush is dead in the water. There's really no point in talking about it. And Rand has kind of flip-flopped on some issues that give me concern about how he would be as a president. But Rand's done. Rand is done. Jeb is done. Really, the field you're looking at on the Republican side is Trump, Cruz, and Rubio. And I don't know about Dog Biscuit Lady. After watching that ad, she might as well just quit too. Who am I voting for? Like I said when I was talking with Kyle during our discussion about Bernie Sanders, none of the political options really appeal to me. I'm not voting for any of them. I find there are none of the candidates that line up with my views. All of them have issues. I find Trump the most entertaining of them all, and I like that he has the attitude of being able to say whatever he wants, and I like that he doesn't play by the political rule set that's been in place now for decades. I find that entertaining, almost charming. But his stance on surveillance, on the NSA, stuff like that, is just a deal breaker for me. Question, do you think Hillary or Trump would win the election? I think if it came down to Hillary or Trump, and it was we're talking election season here, yeah, I would probably give the edge to Trump, to be honest with you. Trump would have to do something monumentally stupid to hurt his momentum. And I think the email thing is going to eventually catch up with Hillary. I think there's going to be more about that. So I think Hillary will have something come out about her that will hurt her campaign. Trump, people have already kind of accustomed themselves to the idea that they don't like Trump. A lot of people hate on him, but they're used to him. I think Hillary will have something come out that would be kind of a shock or, out of left field kind of thing that would really put off voters. That would be my guess. Talk about the failed vetting of Muslim terrorists. Yeah, well, you had the whistleblower come through who basically said, God, did he work for Homeland Security? I'd have to go reread the Breitbart article or any of the subsequent ones, but he had talked about how the PC culture at intelligence agencies basically was working against them, that he had intelligence about the people in San Bernardino, or at least the groups they were associated with, but because they didn't want to be accused of profiling Muslims, they didn't pursue that intelligence, and that might have led to them being able to pull off the attack. Again, it seems ridiculous to me that we've set up this almost totalitarian surveillance state where everybody's emails are being looked through, where all this information is being parsed through, and then when it comes to actual terrorists, they don't use the information to pursue it. What the hell's the point then? Why are you reading through my emails if you're not going to look at theirs? And if you have information that they're a terrorist, if they're involved in something, why is the politically correct mindset even influencing intelligence gathering or analysis? I mean, if you're already a part of those organizations, if your job is to pursue these leads, then you should be doing it. Fuck the idea that, it might be perceived as profiling or it might be perceived as not being politically correct. I know a bunch of dead people in San Bernardino that wouldn't give a shit if it was, politically incorrect. They'd rather be alive right now. And that even touches on what happened with the neighbors. Neighbors wouldn't even report them because they didn't want to get accused of being a racist. The country's absurd. The whole situation is absurd to me. But we'll talk about that more in depth maybe next episode. All right, let me finish it off here. Grab a good question. The philosopher, who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck indeed? I don't know if that's really a question, but there you go. Oh, why am I gay? Because who doesn't love dick, right? Am I right? Am I right, folks? Feel the burn, suck a cock. Stand with Rand. Nobody's going to be standing with Rand. You know why you want to know why Rand Paul uses the phrase stand with Rand? Because he needs to stand on a chair to look at you in the eyes. That's why that man uses the phrase stand with Rand. Because if he were to sit down, he would fucking disappear. It'd be like Gulliver's Tales. He would just fade out of existence. Somebody would be like, "Oh my God, did I just stumble over a gnome? Are mystical creatures real?" Oh no, that was Rand Paul. I tripped over Rand Paul. Sorry, everybody. It wasn't a gnome. That's why they use stand with Rand. Thoughts on Bayonetta and Smash? I don't play Smash right now, so it's cool they added the character though, and that's not really political. All right, well, this has gone on long enough, I believe. The next week, I'm going to actually show up at noon, fingers crossed, and go to 3 o'clock. Again, if you have a political candidate you want to come on and pitch, like Kyle pitched Bernie Sanders, feel free to do it. Again, I want to try to get somebody from the other side, so a Rubio or a Cruz or a Chris Christie supporter, whatever. You can contact me on Twitter, and I'll bring you on. We'll do a conversation. I'll give you an hour of time, and we'll go over the talking points of the candidate and talk about their positions and your beliefs in them. Well, that'll do it for the first episode of Metocast. I hope you guys found it entertaining. I hope you liked it. Have a good one.